So you get different types of factorizing. One of them would include the following. All you've got to remember is this. If your factorizing involves an x squared term, even if there's a number in the front, okay, like a 2, or if it's just got x squared with no number in the front, we know there's a 1 there. Or if it's got a number, so it's got a number, okay, with no x's or other letters attached to it, so a number on its own. So let me just show you an example. I'll do it in red. So see that plus 12, that's a number on its own. Plus 20, a number on its own. Minus 99, a number on its own. Okay, so what you're looking for before you start this, has it got an x squared term and has it got a number term? Has it got an x squared term? Has it got a number term? Okay, has it got, a number, but this one doesn't have an x squared term, so that's different. What we're looking for are x squared terms and number terms. If it has an x squared term and a number term, then we know it's a double bracket question. If it's missing one of the two, an x squared term, a number, or both, then it is a single bracket factorizing. Okay, that's the first step. If you do that, 50% of the problem has been solved. So let's pick out a question. Let's start with the mild spicy one over here. So I'm going to start with the first one here. So you got 4a plus 2. So we don't have a square term, although we have a plus 2, which is a number term. So it's a single bracket question. We're going to have a line out here, and this is what the highest common factor is. Okay, or I call it common, but we have to look for the highest number. So we got a 4a, I'll write it out here, 4a and a plus 2. So what's common as in the C here, what's common in 4a, and it's also common in 2, but the highest. Okay, in this case, a 2 is high, because a 2 can go into a 4 and a 2 can go into a 2. So 2 is common. We don't put the letter outside because there is an a here, but because there is no a on this side, okay, it's not common in both. So we've got 2 on the outside. So 2 times something, okay, find out what it is. 2 times something makes 4a. Remember, you've already got the 2 out here. So 2 times 2a, okay, makes the 4a on the top. Let's check it though, it takes a second. 2 times 2 is the 4. And because there's only 1a, okay, that's why there's 1a on the outside. The next one, I'll put a plus here because we're moving on from here, so it's a plus. You've got a 2 on the outside still, so you've still got a 2 on the outside. You only needed a 2 on the outside, so you have to write something here. You can't just leave it blank. It's not 0 because 2 times 0 is 0, but I want a 2. So the next best thing, if you've actually got it, we put a 1. Let's just check it. 2 times 1 is 2. So this has been factorized. We've put it in a bracket. Let's try another one, for example. Okay, let's try the second one here. So here we've got 7u minus 14uy. Now if we look at this, you've got a 7 here, you've got a 14 here. So what's common in the numbers? If there's anything common, okay, there's a 7. The first term has a u, the second term also has a u, so u has to also be common. There's also a y outside, but the first term does not have a y at all, so we can't put y on the outside. So what does that mean then? It means that's our common, okay? And because none of the terms have got a square term and a number on its own, has to have both of them, that's why it's a single bracket. So we've got a 7u here and we've got a 7u here. Because they're exactly the same, again like the previous one, we put a 1. We've got 7u here. We want to get 14uy. Now, because we've got 7, to make 14, okay, we need 2 more. We've got 1u here. We only needed 1u, so we don't need any more u's. So therefore, we need 1 more y because our common doesn't have a y, so there has to be a y here. Okay, have a look at the third one. Third one's really interesting actually here. We've got 4c squared minus 24c cubed. Here's one of the most common answers that students write down. So watch what I do here. 2c bracket 2c minus 12c squared. Okay, and just to check it, okay, 2c times 2c is 4c squared, and 2c times minus 12c squared, let's do the numbers first. So 2 times 12 is 24, and c times c squared is c cubed. This is the most common answer that students write, so they only get 1 mark in the exam paper. The reason why they only get 1 mark in the exam paper is because the common out here has to be the highest common factor. So watch how I redo this question again. Okay, so we've got a 4 here, and I'll use actually, let me use a different color on this one. Let's use a blue on the top here. We've got a 4 here, and we've got a 24. Now I know 2 goes into both 4 and 24, but it's not the highest. The highest that goes into 4 and 24 has to be 4. So you have to pick the highest common factor. The next one, just be careful with this one, okay, has got a c square and a c cube. Now we know c goes into both of them, but that's actually not the highest. C square can go into a c square perfectly once, and c square can go into c cube. You have to also, in the letters, also pick the highest one. That's why this c is not accepted. So now let's check here. So you've got a 4 here, you've got a 4 here, which means you don't need a number. You've got a c square, you've got a c square, okay, which means you don't need anything. So we fill it with a 1, because 4c squared times 1 is 4c squared. Now we move to the next one. You've got 4c, sorry, let's do the 4. You've got a 4, you want to make 24, so you need a 6 there. Now check this one out. You've got c squared, which means you've got 2 lots of c's. Okay, that's what c squared means. You've got c times c, 2 lots of c's, and you need 3 lots of c's according to the top. So you just need 1 more c, because 2 lots of c's plus 1 lot of c makes 3 lots of c, and that's how you factorize this one. Okay, you can try the question 4 on your own if you want, and see how you do on that. Let's have a look at the next one over here, please. Factorizing. I'll go to medium spicy. So you can look at this, you can pause it, have a go. Let's have a look at the medium spicy. Now, this one here is interesting because this is the most popular ones that come up. So x squared, let me just do... actually, whether you do medium spicy or hot and spicy, it makes no difference. I'm going to pick... let's pick a hard one. I'm going to go to hot and spicy, and I'll pick question number 1. So x squared minus 11x plus 28. Okay, so factorize this. Now what do you notice? You have an x squared and you have a number term. So in this case, there's a double bracket question. Both of them will have an x in there, okay, in the double bracket. So we now need to know how to factorize. So this is what you do. The last term over here, I'm going to put a multiplication. You need to find me 2 numbers that multiply together to make 28. So I'm going to write a list of numbers. You have to do this in the exam, write the list of numbers. So 1 times 28 makes 28, but also just be a bit careful. To make a positive 28, you could also have a minus 1 and a minus 28, because 2 negatives multiplied together makes positive. You can also have a 2 and a 14, so 2 times 14 makes 28, but also remember there's the flip of it, minus 2 and minus 14. You can also have, if you want, think about this, you can also have 4 and 7, because 4 times 7 is 28, but remember there's the flip of that, minus 4 and then minus 7. There's no other numbers, whole numbers, okay, that make the 28. So now what we do is this, according to our middle term over here, we got a minus 11. So all the lists I've got at the bottom make plus 28. Now only one of those pairs of numbers, if I add them together, makes minus 11. Not 11, minus 11. Let's check. If I took 1 and 28 and add them together, it makes 29. I don't want 29, I want minus 11. If I add together minus 1 and minus 28, I get minus 29. That's still not minus 11. Let's have a look at the next one, 2 and 14. If I add 2 and 14 together, I get 16, but that's not minus 11. Minus 2 and minus 14 makes minus 16, okay? 4 and 7 make 11. I don't want 11, I want minus 11. And minus 4 and minus 7 does make minus 11. So those 2 are the factors that I'm looking for. So we put them inside the bracket. The order doesn't matter as long as you've got the sign correct. So one is minus 4 and the other is minus 7. And that has been factorized. Okay, you can prove whether it has been factorized if you expanded it out and then simplified it, and it should make the top equation as expression at the top. Okay, so you can do that, but that does take time. You should be getting it first time round. Be a bit careful though. I'm just going to clear this. Be a bit careful, because if you've got something like, I'm just giving you an example, let's say let's give you a nice one over here. Let's say this one over here. So we've got x squared minus 2x minus 8, and you're saying what 2 numbers multiply together, always start with that make minus 8. To make a minus 8, okay, one number has to be positive, the other number has to be negative, because a positive times a negative makes a negative. But remember I told you there's the flip of them that you have to do. So you could have had minus 1 times a positive 8, because a positive and a negative again still makes a negative. You also could have had 2 times 4. There you go. and one of them is positive, the other is negative, remember that, and then -2, and then +4. So you could flip it around if you needed to. There's no other numbers that multiply together to make now -8. So now what do? We do the adding bit. But what do we need to make when we add? We need to make a -2, not 2, -2, because there's a minus in front of this 2. So 1 take away 8 gives you -7, and -1 plus 8 gives you +7. 2 take away 4 gives you -2, and -2 add the 4 gives you +2, or just 2. I'm looking for -2, so -2 is this. This is my pair that I need. So again, we open the brackets. One of them is a +2, so I have to write +2 next to it. The other number is a minus, so I have to write -4 next to it. And that's factorizing. Okay, so you need to keep practicing this with all of these. And the reason why you need to keep practicing it with all of these is so that you've got numbers multiplying in your head that make the combination and numbers that add together. Then you've got the slightly harder one, the harder factorizing quadratics. And in that one, I'm just going to show you one example, then you can do it. They've put it on the challenge time, so you can have a go at this. So I'm going to use this one here, space. So let's look at the first one. So you've got 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. So the first rule is you take the first number, not the letter, the first number here, okay, in front of the x squared, and the first number in front of the +2, and you multiply them together. So 2 times +2 is +4. You find a list of combinations that make +4. So if I write them, it's 1 times 4. Don't forget the flip of it, so -1 times -4. 2 times 2, and -2 times -2 also makes +4. But one of these combinations makes the middle +5. If I take the first two and add them together, 1 plus 4, that already makes 5, so I don't need to worry about the rest of them. So I know it's 1 and 4. So what I'm going to do is, please watch this, you take the first term and you drop it down, you take the last term and you drop it down. So we end up with 2x squared and +2, and there's a gap in the middle. What do we do in the gap in the middle? We need to find +5x, which we have using two terms, +1, okay, so +1x and +4x. So this 1 and 4 become a +1x and a +4x. Now it doesn't matter which order you write them in. I always try to tell students, try and make the first one here that you're going to pick the positive term. Now because they're both positive, the order doesn't matter. I'm going to put the +4x. You could have put the +1, you still get the same answer. So I'll put the 4 here. Don't forget to put the x there. I'll explain why in a second. And then you put the next number next to it, +1x. The reason why you have to put an x after them is because +4x plus 1x makes +5x here at the top. So that 5x has been replaced with two terms. Once you've done that, you block off the first two terms and you block off the last two terms. Okay, so what you're now going to do here is you're going to factorize. You're going to factorize, and this one here, you're going to do the same. You're going to factorize both of them. But let's do the first bracket. Remember, factorize fully. This is going to be a single bracket. Why is it a single bracket? Because if you look at this first here, okay, you've got a square term, but you don't have a number term. The number term is in this bracket. We're only focusing on this bracket over here. And in this bracket, we only have a square term, but we don't have a number term on its own. So it's a single bracket with a common. So what can we put on the outside? We've got a 2 and a 4, so 2 is the highest number. We've got x squared and an x, so x is the highest letter. So 2x times x makes 2x squared, and 2x plus the 2 makes 4x. So we factorized it. Now what you do is you take the x plus 2, because it's in the first bracket. The aim is it has to be in the second bracket. Don't start finding this. Don't start factorizing this straight away. Because if you factorize it, you can, but you still could get the wrong answer. So the best way to do it is copy the first bracket here that you've got x plus 2 here. Okay. And once you've got that, find the common on the outside. So here you've got a 1x and here you've got a 2. So something times x gives me 1x. It's going to be +1. Just check it. 1 times x is 1x. Don't forget to put the sign in the front because you have to separate the two terms. Okay, so you need to separate them. So you've got a +1 here. Just to check that it works, multiply the 1 with the 2. So 1 times 2, if you expanded it, should make this 2 here at the top. So we know it works. That's why you have to do the bracket first and then do the common. So how do we now factorize it? The final step. Because both brackets have got x plus 2, that is one of your factors. That's one of your factorizing brackets. Look what's on the outside. you have a 2x on the outside and you have a +1. Guess what you do with the outside? You put it in the next bracket in order. So 2x, then the +1, and that has now been factorized. There's a question 2 here, question 3, question 4, and question 5. You can have a go at these as well, okay, line by line. Do it, send it to me on DPR, and I'll have a quick check of it, okay? Before that though, hold on, I've got another factorizing one I want to show you though. I think this is important. So the other popular one that comes up is something called difference of two squares. Don't worry about the examples at the bottom, just watch here. So x squared, let's call it minus 16. There we go. So you've got a square term and you've got a number term. So we know it's a double bracket, as I've explained. However, in the previous one, we said what two numbers multiply together to make minus 16, but add together to make the middle? There's a problem. There's no middle here, because the middle, when we did it last time, looks something like this. Here we go. There were three terms. What two numbers multiply together to make the last term, but add together to make the middle term? We don't have it here, but we know it's a double bracket question. So this one is called the difference of two squares. Okay, so simply what we do is, okay, if I square rooted the x square, okay, we work out the difference of the two squares. The square root and the square both cancel, so you're left with just x. So both terms will have an x. If you square root the 16, you'll get a 4, so both terms will have a 4 in there as well. Okay, one will be a plus, one will be a minus. There's the plus, there's the minus. It is the difference of two squares. If you did expand this and simplified it, you would get the term at the top. And the reason why there's no term in the middle is because the +4 and the -4 would have cancelled it out in the middle. Try it, expand it, and see what happens. Here's another one, just to give you an idea. So x squared minus 81. Here we go. Again, it's got a square term and a number term. Freeze, don't go straight into it with brackets and that. Since it's got a square term and a number, it's a double bracket, but there's no middle term, so therefore it's a special one. It's the difference of two squares. So one will be plus, one will be minus. There you go. And the square root of 81 will be +9 and then -9. They start giving you slightly interesting ones here as well. I'll just show you an example. So let's use this one here. There we go. So I'm just going to focus on the question. Don't worry about the working out. So you've got 9x squared minus 16. Again, both terms, there's an x squared term, there's a number. So it is going to be a double bracket question. Okay. If I square root the first term here and I square root this term over here, please be careful. You're square rooting the 9 and the x squared, not just the 9 or just not the x squared. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of x squared is x. Both of them will have 3x in there. One will be plus, one will be minus. Square root of 16 is 4, and the other one will be -4. So it's exactly the same as they've got here. You can have a go at this one as well yourself, okay, on here, and you should see that it makes this up as well. Really good questions, these. They are, as we say, difference of two squares. It does come up. So you can have a go at the ones I've showed you before, but also have a look at these. I've got a mixture of questions here as well for you to practice on these. You always should be practicing factorizing. So you've got this slot here. You've got the other questions I gave you. You've got loads of questions here. And then this is the one with the numbers in the front, so they get slightly harder. And then this is where the grade kind of 7 going into 8 slightly comes in. They say simplify. You never simplify first. What you do is you factorize the top bit, okay, expression. You factorize the bottom. So you're going to have an expression on the top, an expression on the bottom. I'll give you a clue. Because they've got the word simplified, there'll be a bracket on the top that looks exactly the same as the bracket on the bottom. Okay, doesn't matter which order it is in. One will cancel with the other, and that's your answer. That's how you simplify it as well. So have a go at these as well and get back to me.